Costa, and he's been in the bodybuilding industry for nearly 4 decades, has been out there. In the 1980s, you were like the guy. But you're not bad today, dude. I've been seeing a lot of your photos you've been posting. You're like, dude, I am 66, and you're like showing off the bodies. Being in it for long and being in it for the right reasons. I think a lot of people get into bodybuilding and it's just a phase they go through, but it's never been about a phase for you. So I'm excited to talk to you here today.
Very good. Glad to be on your show, Jimmy.
Yeah, man. So tell us a little bit about how you got into the bodybuilding industry. You've been at this a very long time. You were around circa when Arnold Schwarzenegger was the big guy.
Yeah.
About some of those early days.
Yeah, that's actually the first training course that I ever wrote was actually competing with the bodybuilding or something that he had as a training course out there. I was in direct competition with him, which was kind of interesting. But how I got into it originally was it was a buddy of mine who saw me, because I've been an athlete my whole life, ever since I was 8 years of age, playing football or one of those things. But I never lifted weights. Believe it or not, back then, if you were played a specialty position like I did at quarterback, they didn't want us lifting weights. In fact, we'd have to run extra wind sprints if they caught us in the weight room. So I never lifted weights, and I didn't start lifting weights until I was, out of college. Not even in college, they wanted us the hell out of the gym.
Wow.
And but so when I first started lifting weights was right before or right when I was going to get married. I got into a little weightlifting program. I knew nothing. And then I came home after being in business down in LA as a mason. My childhood friend who hadn't seen me forever, his first words were, when he saw me, "What the hell happened to you?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" Denial is a powerful thing. And I thought I looked pretty good, but, I was working out, I had kids, being married, all that good stuff. And, but I got into the gym because of him. And back then there wasn't any social media. It was learning from all the magazines that were out there, Muscle Fitness and all those. So it was an interesting learning curve. And I made my own equipment, and I started weight training at that point. And then the bug bit. After about 6 months, I thought, oh my God, I really like this. It makes me feel good. And the next thing you know, I joined the gym about a mile or two away from my house. And then all of a sudden I was competing after about a year of training. So I got into it at that level. And I tell you what, one of the things that I really wanted to be when I first was out there when I was growing up is I wanted to be a pro athlete. It didn't work out for me. I got injured at the college level.
Well, look, had they lift weights as a quarterback, like look at somebody like Cam Newton today. Like, dude is a or Kyler Murray. These guys, they have the muscles. They can withstand hits.
Oh yeah,
understand that in the 80s, apparently. So.
Well, and to give them credit, sometimes if you do something that you don't really know enough about, you can actually, in this case, you can actually make an athlete stronger but slower, and that's not what athletics is all about. So they just didn't have the information back then like they do now. But after I wanted to be a pro athlete, didn't work out, and I made a promise to myself, because I ended up on a family dairy, which is not where I wanted to be, but it was like, stable back then. And I just made a promise to myself, if I ever got another chance at doing something that gave me the passion that sports did, I wouldn't question it, and I would jump. After my first bodybuilding show, I felt that buzz in the belly again, and without questioning, I jumped. There were no trainers in my area during those days in my town. That didn't even matter to me. Bodybuilding got me hooked, and I figured out a way how to become a personal trainer. It's amazing what happens when you have passion for something, and then you're highly motivated, and then the fact that you're scared out of your brains, because you got 2 kids and a wife are going, really, you're going to do this in a market that has no one?
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. So,
You're talking to somebody that did that in the podcast realm. I started this
there you
podcast.
go.
There were no podcasts out there, so
Yeah.
kind of relate on a different level to that, and the
Yeah.
uncertainty, and then going full time with it as your job, which ostensibly
Right.
building has been or was your job at that point as well.
Yep. And it never, once I got into it, I've never looked back. And I just really understood how, like I said, passion is amazing. It's an amazing thing to have for whatever you do, because ever since I, did that first competition, I started getting my clientele. Look, there were tough times there, but there always are going to be tough times.
Yes.
It looks different when you have passion for what you're doing. You figure out a way.
Yeah.
You just come up. You know that because you got into we share sort of the same thing that happened with us at that time, and I never looked back. And then I remember there was a trip that was being offered to some Americans. They were going to Eastern Europe. It was like a first time trip. 19 of us ended up going. I was one of them that came from the U.S., and I went to Bulgaria, Russia, and Czechoslovakia. And, I didn't know what to expect because they were really known for Olympic lifting.
Yes.
And, coming there as a bodybuilder, I didn't really know if it was going to apply to me. But it sounded so interesting. I took the chance, and the rest is history. I came back from that 2 weeks that I was gone, and I talked to who's now still my partner in business. I said, these guys were so, and I'm talking about the Bulgarians mainly, said they were so ahead of us in the way they thought and the way they approached with their athletes. I said, we got to do something because we can apply it to the bodybuilding market. And we did that. It was called Bulgarian Burst, was our very first training course that we came up with. It was 39 pages. We sold it for $39, which was unheard of. It's $1 a page. Arnold's training course that he was selling was like 100 and some pages, and he was selling it for $20 or $30. So we were competing in that market to some degree with guys like that, Bill Pearl and Arnold. And hey, it worked. We did a test. We got this guy named Jay Abraham who knows how to market specifically to what your goal is. And we came in and we got lucky, and that bodybuilding course sold almost 1 million copies.
Whoa.
And we were off to the races, and we've never looked back. That's how I got into that thing. And then we just kept writing other courses it was like an evolution of the first one, but they all had a tie with one another. But that's how we got into it.
That's amazing. And a lot of people are really interested in bodybuilding, even still today. The 80s seemed to be the heyday, I guess, when Arnold was popular, kind of brought a lot of people, kind of like Tiger Woods came to golf, and everybody wanted to be a golfer at that point. So
yeah,
we can say what we want about Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he definitely brought the glam to your industry. Now still operates to this day.
Yeah. No, he and the environment that was inside of the gym back then was amazing. I remember going down there because I trained down there with Tom Platz for one of the shows that I did. I brought Tom on, and he helped me because you got to keep getting better help when you don't really know. It's all based on firsthand experience. But at some point, you need other people to help you. And Tom was one of those guys. But I ended up at Venice Beach. I was living in a hotel down there and training at Gold's Gym. I mean, the Mecca. And I got to tell you something. It was unbelievable, the environment on the inside. I mean, it was intense. And I think my proudest moment, even though I competed up to the world level, my proudest moment was doing a photo shoot inside Gold's Gym, Venice, with all the pros that were there, because that was intimidating, to be around those guys and to feel like you belonged there. For me, that was better than any show that I competed in or that I won. But yeah, it was great times down there during those days.
So it sounds like you did a lot of the behind the scenes work of helping other people and giving them the training courses and these manuals and things that you worked on. Did you yourself compete in a lot of competitions, and what was that experience?
Yeah, actually I did. I competed I probably competed in about 6 or 8 shows. I started kind of late for bodybuilding. I was already 27, and in that sport, that's kind of late. But no, I started at the beginner level. Yeah, that's when I came back after a 13-year layoff. I was 56 there. But yeah, that's the last time I competed right there. But no, I competed at the world level in Belgium. I competed at the national level. So I had quite a bit of experience under my belt that way. And of course, my goal back then, that's when I competed. I was 41 there, and I just won the nationals in Vegas. So I won that show. And then I had, I think, 2 more shows or 3 more shows after that, which was back down to the regional and then the local level. That was around Vegas time. So that was after the nationals or right before. So here's what I learned and wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that I tried everything on myself, because again, when I made that decision to become a personal trainer, I was drawing from my bodybuilding and what was going on in the gym as far as how I was training myself. The programs came after that fact. I first got into the gym, a lot of trial and error, because I wanted to make sure that when I was dealing with somebody, that I did it first, so I know exactly what they were going through, what they felt, and what they could expect.
Yes.
So it was like, first-hand experience it's hard to replace. My dad said that, many, many years ago. And so I used that formula, and I made sure that I did everything. So I wasn't telling somebody to do something that I didn't do or that I wasn't willing to do. We were in it together at that point. And my stated goal for anyone that came on, whether it be for personal training or for bodybuilding, was to get them in the best shape of their lives. And as a business model, I've always had a or your money back attitude, because I know that if you follow, and this is what our training courses are all about, if you follow the program as it is written, I know what kind of results it's going to produce. If it doesn't produce the results that we're saying, then we're willing to back that up. But Jimmy, most of the time, the reason that people don't get the results they want, and it's not just in this sport, it's because of what they're not doing. They're not following through. And in bodybuilding, like many other sports that are extreme sports, it's unwavering. You have to have unwavering discipline. It doesn't matter what you're feeling like that day. It doesn't matter if you're sick. None of that matters. To achieve that kind of result, it's just for the few. And so the ones that aren't reaching that goal, it has more to do with them looking at their mirror and finding out where the problem is.
Yeah. With everything in life, that's usually why people fail. My followers will be very interested to know that you actually have a connection to the low carb world. Why don't you tell them about the book you co-authored?
Yeah, I met a guy by the name of Mauro Di Pasquale. He's a doctor, and Mauro and I connected after one of my shows. I saw him he was writing articles for one of the magazines. I thought, you know what? You never know until you try. I reached out to his website or what he had, email or whatever he had. Lo and behold, he got back to me. And the next thing I know, Mauro was known for the ketogenic diet, and we collaborated.
And this was
Go ahead.
This was way before the modern keto movement. This was like
right. Yes, and this was around the days of Atkins. In those days, we wrote a manual called Anabolic Diet, which was we just targeted the bodybuilder and said, look, this is a way for you to eat that's very counterintuitive. It went against the grain, and people had some knowledge with Atkins, but there was so much misinformation and misconception about how that diet really worked. And Mauro and I, like I said, I was the test dummy in a way. I did whatever he said, and I'll tell you what, it was. I ended up staying on that diet the whole time when I was competing. It got that good of results for me.
And it's amazing because in the bodybuilding industry, it seems like definitely when you started in the 80s and became really big in it, the carb focus was there. And it wasn't just even in bodybuilding, even in like athletic endurance running. It was also very prominent. I know Professor Tim Noakes talks about, he wrote The Lure of Running, and so became this huge bestseller. And now he rips out the chapter on nutrition because he's like, oops, I messed up. Everything else cool.
Yeah.
And so the bodybuilding industry caught on to keto and low carb as a means for muscle development and all the things a lot sooner than the culture did. Why? What did they see that the culture didn't?
I think it's always about understanding, when you're a student of the game, a lot of bodybuilders are students of the game. Now, a lot of them aren't. They're just being told what to do by a trainer who doesn't really understand what they're doing to the nth degree, what I call it. But a lot of your bodybuilders are students of the game. They understand the why of how it's working. Like, for example, you have two different metabolisms in your body. You have a free fatty acid metabolism, which is the metabolism that Atkins diet access, the keto diet. They're all the same in terms of which metabolism that it's accessing. And then you have glucose metabolism, and that's in the free fatty acid, your body is using fat as its main energy source, just to be clear. When you're doing the carbohydrate or the glucose metabolism, it is utilizing carbohydrates as its main energy source, right? And there was some misconception. I mean, way back when, Vince Gironda also had a lot of his athletes on the zero carbohydrate diet. So Vince was actually ahead of Atkins. He was like he was way out there. Vince was a genius. And this, in some ways, starts because of him in the bodybuilding industry. He introduced that to some of the athletes back then. But because they really didn't understand it, they had the mindset of a product of what you eat. Like they thought that fat was the devil or the evil macro.
Right.
And of course it's not. When you understand that fat is used as energy, and the way, and they thought, because of Vince, they thought, well, I don't want to eat no carbohydrates because my body needs carbohydrates. That's also a misconception. But what we learned, and what I learned from Morrow, was that you could actually eat 30 grams of carbs a day just to be safe, and you would still be in a free fatty acid metabolism. So you could have carbohydrates.
Yes. People ask me, Jimmy, how do you get such good deep sleep? Well, there's a lot of things that I do, but one of the newest things that I recently added is this upgraded magnesium from a company called Upgraded Formulas. Go to their website, upgradedformulas.com, and you can learn all about this nano technology that they use for this particular mineral of magnesium. Again, it's called Upgraded Magnesium, and it's got all the different forms of magnesium in it, using the nanotechnology so it gets absorbed a lot better. Guys, I have seen my deep sleep improve by as much as 30 to 40% simply by adding in this product along with sunshine exposure, darkness in the room, cooler temperature, all of the things that I always have done. So again, upgradedformulas.com is the website. Go check them out. Now, the fun part about resistance training is you can wiggle room yourself into allowing more carbohydrate because your body will easily utilize that glucose from the carbs. And then there's also this school of thought post-workout, targeting carbohydrates post-workout so that you get the insulin release, which can help with the building of the muscle. Are there any concerns there, or is that legit? What's your thought?
Well, how we got around that, and this is like sort of a nuance of what most people don't understand, even to this day, from my own experience talking to people about this type of diet, is the way that we started letting the body access more carbohydrates is you have to understand that it takes 3 days for your body to switch metabolism. So if you're on a glucose metabolism, and this applies if you're on a high fat or free fatty acid metabolism, that you have to, if I'm going on a high fat diet, if I reduce my carbohydrates down to 30 grams for 3 consecutive days, on the third day my body converts over from the carbohydrates to free fat, or fat now being this main energy source. It's kind of like having ports of entry in your body. and those ports are not open simultaneously. So the way you shut one down in this case, going from glucose to free fatty acid, is you cut your carbohydrates to 30 grams for 3 days. On the fourth day, by the fourth day, your body is now utilizing the free fatty acid metabolism. So, getting to the point of how you utilize carbohydrates, and I learned this from Morrow, what you can do is 2 days consecutively, you can have the carbohydrates that you want. Now, people say, well, aren't you switching back over to the glucose metabolism? No, because it takes 3 complete days before that happens. So what that means is you're getting all these carbs that you're probably craving, and then your body is wanting to fill you back up. But the good news is you're still on the fat metabolism. So you can have actually the best of both worlds, but you got to know how to do that. You can do them 2 days in a row, then you come back off that, and then you're cycling back to the free fatty acid. We did what's called a 52 diet. Monday through Friday, the fat metabolism, and then Saturday and Sunday. And the 2 days can be any combination of the 2 days.
Yeah, there was a book that came out about 15 years ago, right when I was first starting out, called Carb Backloading, and it was kind of John Kiefer and some of his concepts about that, and then carb cycling in, with doing exactly what you just said, Monday through Friday, eating pretty ketogenic, and then over the weekend, loading up on carbs. And they didn't really care about food quality either. They were just like,
nope,
have whatever carbs your body wants, and then get right back on it on Monday. I thought that was the craziest thing in the world, but look, I get it now. I understand the mechanism of the body desiring those, and there's benefit when it comes to building muscle, which is what you've been about for 4 decades. If you do that, are you a proponent of that today?
Absolutely. And, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and that's the beauty of understanding macros to the nth degree. I had 10 years ago, I had 3 strokes in 3 weeks that paralyzed me. So what I did with that is, because I had like 35 overall, the funny thing is when I had my strokes, obviously I had to go to the doctor to get all these MRIs and stuff like that. And the thing is, the doctor said, I got a hernia, Jim, from rehabbing myself. I did my own rehab. I didn't go to a physical therapist. I just thought I could do it better. I'm a bodybuilder. I don't know if that was made good sense, but look, I recovered 100%. But I got a hernia from rehabbing with no weights. I was straining so hard to get my body back that I got a hernia. When I got that, I had to go to the doctor. He said, you got to get fixed, but you got to get yourself tested again to make sure that there's no holes in your heart. When you go under anesthesia, you're exposing yourself to another potential stroke, right? So I did that, and then the doctor said, overall you're 35% blocked. And I thought, that's horrifying. And he said, no, in our world, we don't start stenting or doing medication until somebody is 70% blocked, if you can believe that.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's what I said. And I thought, oh, hell no. Because I'm competitive, I thought, okay, after I got that, I did all the testing. For the next year, I started combining my macros in a certain way. Yeah. And I'm going to make a point here eventually, but after a year, I went back to the doctor, and they said, amazingly, I did the very same test again, and he said, you reversed your heart disease by 15%. How did you do that? They're asking me. Yeah. How did you do that? That's just a testament to how there's a lot of ways to skin the cat if you understand how to utilize your macros.
So I interviewed Dean Ornish. I know you know who that is because you've been in the game for a little while. The low-fat vegan guy that's been out there forever. And I had him on my podcast. This has been many moons ago. And he's like, Jimmy, my low-fat diet is the only way to regress heart disease or regress the atherosclerotic plaque in your arteries. And I'm like, no, it's not. But okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But yeah, and from my experiences, especially after Morrow, and we did that book, he just opened up my whole universe as far as having options with people. Because you know what, Jim, the truth is, not one diet is going to work for 100% of the people. As a personal trainer, you have to understand that concept and not shove stuff down people's throats, no pun intended, when, for whatever reason, it doesn't work for them. Because it doesn't work for 100% of people, just like eating carbohydrates don't do that either. Nothing does.
Right.
So as a trainer and as somebody my body has always been my lab, you have to understand that. And then at some point you have to go, okay, I have to make these modifications to make that all work. And that's the reason why I'm saying there's a lot of ways to skin that cat. But when I was working with people, and because of Morrow, he said, if you want to drop somebody's cholesterol down immediately, go on a high-fat diet. And he was right.
Yeah.
It would drop at least 50 points.
Well, and especially the relevant markers, the triglyceride, the HDL ratio, much more so.
Yes.
Because there are hyper responders with LDL cholesterol, which then shows up in your total cholesterol. So does the higher HDL shows up in your total. So if you're still looking at total and LDL, guys, that is archaic. The 19 called and they want their cholesterol device back. Because here in 2022, we know triglyceride to HDL ratio, we know inflammation markers, we know insulin levels. All of these cardiometabolic markers are far more interesting than the things they tell you to worry about.
Exactly. And again, you just don't know that. And it's hard to look. Change is difficult for everyone. It's as a bodybuilder, changing a routine was like pulling teeth out. But you have to be willing to give it a try, and this is what people don't do. The average person will not actually say, okay, let me give this a try. And I'm telling them, look, try it for 3 weeks. I'm not asking you to try it forever.
Right.
And you might be surprised that it might work for you. And in most cases, people are. But it's about education, and it's about working with somebody who knows their stuff to the nth degree. That's what I believe.
So, Leo, help us understand how bodybuilders can balance that need for performance for a show, because I've heard from a lot of people that go into bodybuilding and they go into the competitions and they're in that competition mode, and it's hard on the body when you're going through that. Be able to cut down, lean down, get all the everything popping that needs to pop, and then like you got to recover and you want to do it healthfully. I've heard many people fall apart because that competition damage their body so much that then their body, when they go out of the competition mode, doesn't kind of respond. How do you miss?
Well, first of all, I disagree with that. Okay. Because I think your body is, unless you've completely wiped it out. I mean, listen, I think in part of the reason why I had the strokes that I did, because when I was in the hospital, Jim, after I had these strokes, the doctor said, there's nothing wrong with you based on the test that we just took. And that was almost worse information. So unless you've just totally wiped out your body is so resilient. It just needs you to go about fixing it the right way to get back. And I'll tell you, as a bodybuilder, I said before that if it wasn't for bodybuilding, bodybuilding saved my life when I had my strokes. Because if it wasn't for bodybuilding, and yet because of its own nature being extreme behavior on every level, I potentially exposed myself to what happened to me. Because in the off season, I'd get up, around 280, 300 pounds. Well, that's a liability on an athlete, especially as they've gotten older. But here's the thing: sometimes we get in our own way of being able to do something. And as a bodybuilder, one of the things I had to do, and I think maybe this answered your question, you have to change the stated goal. The stated goal as a bodybuilder is to put on as much muscle mass as possible. And is it dangerous? Yes. Do we do things that expose us? Yes. Those are the consequences that you possibly have to face. Now, when it comes to like what happened to me, I had to change my stated goal. I had to get out of that. I mean, I still have the mindset of a bodybuilder, but I had to get out of that mindset that put me potentially in danger. It's a very difficult thing to do, to harness that. And yet, your thoughts and your brain is your thoughts are the most powerful thing in the world if you can harness some of that. Changing the stated goal. And so what I did is I said, I am going to pay my body back for the hell that I put it through, for 15 years of intense training. I have to pay it back. And I know that my body will respond if I do things in a certain way. So it was more about changing the stated goal to say, okay, now what the stated goal is, I want to become as healthy as I possibly can before anything else. So I think it has to do with, again, it starts here, and you really have to buy into your own what that goal is. And it's like, look, rehabbing from a stroke, rehabbing from a torn up body, guess what? It's going to take a long time. And if you're that person that wants immediate results, you're going to be really disappointed and frustrated. See, that's where bodybuilding saved me, because it takes so long to create a physique to be able to compete on high levels. I knew I was in for a fight, no matter what. And to this day, Jimmy, when it comes to what happened to me with the strokes, I rehab every day, even though I'm 100% recovered. And I live that lifestyle to be as healthy as I possibly can. And honestly, based on lab work, I am.
I say the same thing all the time. They go, see how I eat, and they're like, wow, are you a diabetic? I'm like, no, but I'm trying to prevent from becoming one. I don't want to ever have diabetes if I can help.
Right.
That people don't understand preventive action through diet and lifestyle choices, and it's everything.
Yep, that's exactly right. There's 3 components that you have to focus on, and they apply in every scenario: resistance training, cardiovascular conditioning, and nutrition. And I hear a lot of people say, well, nutrition is 80%. I disagree with that. I think every one of those components have equal value, because if you leave if one gets more attention to the other, you're compromising the others. So I say, look, yeah, they're all important and they all work together. They all stand a load to some degree, but when you put them together and implement them in a certain way, you get a compound effect.
Yes. So here you are in your mid to late 60s. You're just barely younger than my parents, by the way. And I look at both of my parents, and they ain't close to Leo Costa, because, dude, you're living the life. And here you are trying to help mentor, I guess, the younger generation in the bodybuilding world, but also being an example for your peers, and even yours truly, who is about 15, 20 years younger than you. I admire people like you, because I want to be so focused on my own health and my own physical condition by the time I get to your age. You're an inspiration. Where's that come from? Why do you feel so passionate about where you are now in your health journey?
Well, once going way back when, in the late 80s, when I made that promise to myself, if I ever got the chance to do something that I'm passionate about, then I would be all in no matter what. Jimmy, the thing about it is you have to be willing to hold yourself accountable to the nth degree. I have this serious growth creed, and one of the components is, being a student of the game, never missing workouts, to the nth degree, understanding, question everything. It's like anything else. You have to develop a discipline and become so unwavering in that discipline, because there's all kinds of obstacles along the way as you're going along. There's all kinds of reasons and excuses that we come up with as to why we can't do that. So if you really can't buy into that, like in the soul, at the core, and holding yourself accountable, I'm going to tell you how much I hold myself accountable to this day. When I'm doing cardio, and this applies to the 3 components: weight training, cardio, nutritional. Let's just use cardio as an example. If I say I'm going to do 30 minutes of cardio on my bike, I will not get off that bike not even 5 seconds before I'm supposed to be off. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
Most people don't really get that. That crap right there, that little stuff, has to bother you. If I get off that bike 5 minutes or before I'm supposed to, that will bug the crap out of me the rest of the day. It's not worth it. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's easier said than done.
Yes.
And that's the reason why sometimes I come out of my podcast series, I get out there and I get so upset, because I know how much it takes to get the things that you're talking about. If you let yourself off the hook one little bit, you're asking for trouble. Who in the hell wants to do that? That's a hard truth.
I'm right there with you. My almost identical to that philosophy. Don't half-ass podcast for a week, and it's like, I don't feel like doing it. That doesn't even come into the discussion of not feeling like it. No, I task at hand, and I'm going to do it.
Exactly. And when you can get to that point, and listen, you have to care about yourself. Yeah. You have to care. A lot of people don't. I mean, all you have to do is look at them. They don't. But so you have to be passionate about yourself and love yourself, I guess. I don't want to get all goofy here, but you have to have that passion to carry out this monumental task, because guess what? There's no finish line, people. There's never a finish line. Can you wrap your head around that?
Have you experienced the dreaded keto flu? Did you know that most of these symptoms are actually due to your body dumping excess electrolytes? This is where Element comes in. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means lots of salt with no sugar. Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited to folks following a keto, low-carb, or paleo diet. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio, 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, with none of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS. Everyone needs electrolytes, especially those on low-carb diets, or if you practice intermittent or extended fasting, if you're physically active, or sweat a lot. Add Element today and see how much better you feel and perform. Use the URL drinklmnt.com/Jimmy.
Well, and look, I often in my own work, if you don't love yourself, who else is going to? Who else is going to give respect? You've got to give it to yourself, and then others feel that. They will vibe off your energy, and then they'll reciprocate. But it starts with you.
Always. I even talk about that. So, I trained with partners throughout my career, and I still train with a partner, or somebody that's watching me or whatever. But it starts with me first. I'm the one that drives myself, because you know what? Training partners are going to come and go. And what happens to a lot of people when their training partners go? They go. You have to be number uno in this process. It starts all with you.
Yes.
But who in the hell wants to hold themselves that accountable? Because you know what? You're going to disappoint yourself potentially, and that's a hard thing to live up to, and yet you have to.
Yes. And by the way, guys, Leo has his own podcast. I was recently a guest on there called the Fishbowl Podcast, where you talk about these concepts of serious growth and being a better person and all the things. So tell us about your podcast.
Well, I have two of them, like you said. One is Fishbowl. I actually started with what is called serious growth. And the whole point of serious growth was to focus more on the athlete, if you will. But I also wanted to bring people in from different walks of life, because you know what? Athletes and people that are in different walks of life, we have things that are similar as far as how we get certain results. And I wanted to keep drawing that correlation as serious growth. But it was more targeted for the three components: the nutrition, the weight train, all that. So I do that. And when I first got into this business, Jimmy, and I'm still doing this, and the podcasts are allowing me to do this, I asked myself, again, questioning everything, I said, how can I be relevant now in the industry at my age, at 56, and when I asked myself the question? Podcasting is one of the ways for me to stay relevant, because I'm a teacher at heart. I'm a motivator at heart. I still want to do that. I walk through my gym. I don't train any clients anymore, but I walk through there and I'm constantly looking at people who are making mistakes and holding them accountable. It's in my head all the time. So the podcasting gave me an outlet that I can still do that. Serious growth was that outlet. And then, but I also wanted to show a different side of my personality.
Yes.
And because I want to be able to talk, what I pride myself on is I can talk to anybody. I've talked to PhDs. I can run with them. You know what I mean? Because I pride myself on that, and I study that.
Yes.
To be good. Yeah. Fishbowl was more like, Fishbowl is a podcast that you come on where anything goes. Nothing's off the table. I mean, nothing. And we get out there, and it gets kind of crazy. But I just wanted to show that side of also my personality. And I got to tell you something, Jim. One of the things I was always known for in the industry was I talked straight. I was counter popular in the training courses that I wrote. And what comes with that is people that just really disagree with you, and they could kind of be mean sometimes. You gotta build up a thick skin, but it's hurtful sometimes, right?
I have heard you mean online. You've heard that somewhere.
Yeah, and I experienced that when I was doing my training courses. The people that wrote in back then, there was not social media back then like there is now, but the letters that I got, Jim, I thought, oh my goodness, these people are actually out there. They're wackos.
Where at first was when I do videos and people would comment on the YouTube videos back in the 2000s. I'm going, holy crap, people, get a life.
No, really. I'm telling you, it was kind of scary in a way. But the guy that wrote our direct mail piece, Jay Abraham, he says what you have to do is you have to get people off the fence. What that means is they're going to hate you or they're going to love you.
That's right.
But that's where it's at. That's where it's at.
You have to.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Yeah, but here's the thing that I've never done. I've never just been controversial for the sake of it.
No.
I like to tell you this is why. I can base it on principles and physiology. I'm not just saying it, but I'm saying it because it's true. Can you handle that or not? I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to. But I stand for something.
Yes, controversy opened the door for conversation to take place, which is why I love your Fishbowl podcast, which I thoroughly enjoyed being on your show, by the way. You were a lot of fun, and the questions, I don't even remember anything being really hard to answer, but we had an engaging conversation.
I agree.
And that's what I try to do here on my show. I just have conversations. I'm looking at a little bit of the notes, but not really. I'm just having a conversation with you. And that's really what it's all about. And you're doing a great job of educating, by the way. If that's your goal at this point in your life and in your career and what you feel called to do, and you're very good at it, mission accomplished.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that. And that's the heart of who I am. And I can't stop doing it. If in one of our first direct mail pieces, Jay wrote, I have to get the main headline was something like, I got to get this off my chest before I explode. Yeah. I'm still that way. I have to get it off my chest somewhere.
I have been podcasting for more than 15 years, and I've done 1 million podcasts. I still don't feel like I've gotten everything off my chest, and I do 4 weeks. Like I have so much still to tell. My mom always jokes me. She's like, "Where do you come up with all these ideas?" I'm like, "Mama, if you knew what was you would know."
That is so true. And with my podcasting, I have to tell you something. You're very good at what you do as well. And I appreciate that because maybe some people don't realize is that doing a podcast like this, it's kind of like bodybuilding. It's not as easy as you think it is.
Right.
To create something that's entertaining, that's informative, that flows. There's an art to what you're doing, and I appreciate that because I'm a baby into this thing. I haven't done 1 million of them, but I've done 200 maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm just feeling like at 200, I've gotten to the point now. I remember when I first started doing personal training, I was so worried about making sure that person got a great workout, and I was working in other environments. It wasn't my own. I scripted a lot of the work that I did. And then I'd work off that. And then, of course, as I got more comfortable and more seasoned, I never used a script. Same thing, I use that same philosophy in podcasts. I used to have 20 questions.
Yeah.
Because, goodness gracious, what would happen if there was silence on the damn thing? You know what I mean?
You should have seen the first time at one of these medical conferences. It was an obesity conference in the mid-2000s. And Eric Westman and Jeff Folick and Steve Finney and all these guys were there. And they're like, you need to interview some of the doctors. And I'm like, what? I didn't ever done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, interview them. So I'm like having all these lists of questions, and I'm so nervous. Doctor. And I'm just like,
yeah.
But yeah.
It's horrifying. This is what a lot of people don't know. But something? I know how I work is that I do better when I'm unscripted. I mean, it's good that I have a script, but I'm way better, I think, in my own, analyzation of myself. I'm way better when I'm unscripted. And the funny thing is now is that I come on and I don't even have the background with people. I get to know them on camera, and it turns out to be something I think that's authentic, and that's what I've wanted.
Yeah, what's funny is people that I interview, or even me being on other people's podcasts, they're always like, well, you want the questions? And I'm like, no. And you're not going to get it from me. I don't know what I'm going to ask you.
Exactly.
They ask who you are, and you tell me that, and we'll go from there. So, all right, last question, because a lot of people will be interested. People are interested in building muscle and trying to get stronger. They may not want to do bodybuilding, but they want to build their body. Give them some ideas and tips if they're total novice, don't know anything. What can they do starting today?
Okay, first of all, in any kind of a program that you get into, think of it like you're building a house. The first goes the foundation. Secondly is the walls, and thirdly is the roof. It has to be done in that order. You cannot build a house any other way. Okay, when you're building your body, and again, bodybuilding is there's a lot of variations of that. Not everybody wants to be a bodybuilder competing on stage, but you still could be bodybuilding to a degree. But no matter what that goal is, you still have to make sure that you're building it in steps so you can have a strong foundation. Yeah. Okay, that's the first thing. If you're a novice, I would say that stick with basic exercises. As it relates, especially for the males, because we have an ego sometimes that's stupid, and yet it's there. They try to lift too much damn weight. Okay, don't do that. You know, when you're first learning something, you want to form a technique is the most important thing. You're only as good as your form of technique.
Yes.
People, it takes time to do that. If you're a total novice and you have no background, I would highly recommend that you find somebody as a trainer to help you get that part of it right, because when you develop a bad habit, it's really a nightmare to develop a good habit, especially when you've got, a month or a year underneath your belt where now you're breaking bad habits.
Right.
Build the foundation, stay with the basics. When you're that person that's trying to build muscle or improve endurance, it's repetitions over lifting weight. It always is. Now, a lot of the bodybuilders, especially back when, didn't really understand that. They always thought that lifting more weight put on more muscle. That's not true. That's false. It's volume of training. That's repetitions, lighter weight. If you're that athlete that you want to be a power lifter where you're lifting for strength, okay, that's another animal in terms of how many repetitions you're doing versus how much weight that you're doing.
Right.
And that keeps it kind of as simple as I can get into that. But I think what's more important is just that, get somebody that can guide you, especially in the beginning, because there's a long, long learning curve in knowing how to train for whatever you're trying to train for.
Yes.
Or eat for.
Yes, yes. Well, Leo, what a wonderful this was today. Guys, go check him out. I didn't mention it earlier because it's Funky Monkey _ this is his Instagram handle, _ Leo Costa Jr. So LeoCostajr. So put _ first. Was Leo Costa Jr. already taken? What's the _ about?
I'm not really quite. I don't run my social media. All I know is that I always tell people, go to my website, leocostajr.com, because everything that I do is right there, from nuts to bolts.
Yeah.
Or my Instagram that telling me is just go to Leo Costa Jr. on my Instagram. That's all I got, man. I don't know anything else.
From the marketing perspective, it makes it stand out with the _ in there first. But
okay. All right.
Brother, you did it. But thank you so much for being here today on my show. It was awesome to have you, bro.
Jim, thanks for having me, and let's do this again sometime. It's always fun being on with you.
Playing the mask game? Me too. That's why I wanted to tell you about the Unmask. This is a breathable, completely breathable. It covers, you can't even see that it's breathable, but it's breathable. Whether you're going on a plane, having to go into a store and wearing this thing, playthemaskgame.com is how you can get this mask. They come in all kinds of colors and everything. In fact, right there, you can see right through it what it is, but when you're wearing it, it does not look like it's anything different, but it's breathable, baby. Playthemaskgame.com.